Gets real hard, man. Gets real hard to remain positive, to remain optimistic when you're a man that lives a life like like I do, like probably some of you guys do. And not everybody watching this lives a tough life or a unfulfilling life, and I'm happy for you. I'm glad you don't, because this isn't for everybody, man. This isn't for everybody. I genuinely believe that if most people went through the mental hell that a lot of us go through, they would act upon seppuku, and they would take themselves out. But thankfully, they're not, man. Most people they're not cut out for this. They're not cut out to deal with this sort of turmoil, this sort of this mental hell, this sort of defeat ridden life that we have. And I wish I was. Sometimes I wish I was more a little more simple in the brain. There's times I wish I didn't have my abilities to comprehend things, my ability to have empathy. There's times I wish I was just like a sociopath or a psychopath, because I believe my life would be easier. I wouldn't hurt for other people. I wouldn't hurt for I wouldn't hurt. If you're a psychopath, you don't really feel emotions and stuff, and if you're a sociopath, it's the same. And I'm not saying I'm perfect. I'm not a good person. I'm not saying that. All I'm saying is it's just hard, man. It's just hard to remain optimistic when your whole life has been full of defeats and setbacks and losses and then humiliations, embarrassments. It's hard to remain optimistic. I've become a pessimist as I get older. When I was younger and when I was more blue pilled, I'm still blue pilled at my core, but when I was more blue pilled, it was easier, man. It was easier to let things just like slide off, and just it was easier to just go with the flow back in the day. But now that my life has been riddled with defeat, it's like it's hard for me to remain positive. It's real easy for me to just be a Debbie Downer all the time. And when you're like that, it's going to further reinforce your position as a hated individual in society. When you're an undesired man, when you're an outcasted man, such as myself, if you're not always 100% happy-go-lucky, thumbs up in the air, soy jack smile and positive and all that, society's going to get angry at you. Because when you're a man like me, it's like, if you're not, like I said, if you're not 100% positive, they're just gonna like, it's just gonna confirm what they believe about you, which is not really confirmation, but that's how they're gonna take it. If somebody sees you in a bad mood, they're gonna be like, you see, that's why you're in the position you're in. It's your attitude. Meanwhile, they don't see that the reason you have that attitude or are in a bad mood is because of the way life has treated you, right? People don't care. People don't care about your backstory. People don't care about your lore, your history. People don't care about what got you to the point where you're borderline just a defeatist, a freaking pessimist. They don't care what got you there. They only care about how you act in the moment. So if they see you, venting or, releasing a little bit of that anger, that rage, people are just going to hate you even more. But it's real hard, man. It's real hard to always be positive when your life has been shit. I wish I was, like I said, I wish I was still more positive. I wish that I didn't get worked up for a lot of things. I just had blood work done recently. And, the whole time I was leading up to the blood work, I was very scared. I was worried. I was kind of worried that they might find something. There was really no real reason, but it's my pessimistic brain. It's my brain that just automatically jumps to the absolute worst conclusions. And I got the blood work result back, and it was great. All my levels were normal. I got tested for a couple of diseases, all negative. Nothing, I don't even have high cholesterol or anything. No high blood pressure, nothing. And I was happy for about a day or two when I got those results. I felt positive, I felt optimistic, I felt joy for the world and excitement for my future. But then I got one of my YouTube videos taken down. And it really just, I've had other channels in the past, and they all go through the same thing where I'll have growth, and then I get a video taken down, then I get a strike, then I get a second strike. And once you're there, your channel's pretty much a wrap, right? And all those memories just started flooding back in. Just like, oh my God, my channel, like I'm finally getting some growth. My channel's finally taken off, and what are they gonna do? They're gonna shut me down again. You know, that's just where your brain jumps. That's where your brain jumps where, your brain has pattern recognition built inside of it. And, when you've had so many bad things happen in your past and in your life, your brain is just gonna your brain is gonna automatically jump to those conclusions of the patterns that it's recognized. Like, oh man, you've been here before. This is how it ends. It ends with you losing it all. And I got negative for a couple of days, and then I've just, ever since my dad passed away, I don't know if anybody could relate, but ever since my dad passed away, everything scares me when it comes down to health. Like, anytime I see or feel a little soreness, or anytime maybe I feel like a little flu or a cold or a fever, my brain just automatically jumps to death. My brain just automatically jumps to, like, oh my God, you got cancer, man. Oh my God, you got leukemia, man. You're done. You're toast, man. You got tumors. Like, my brain just automatically jumps there because I'm such a pessimist, because my life just has, it's just negative. My life has been negative, that it's kind of hard for me to just write things off as like, hey man, maybe you slept on the wrong side of the bed, you're a little sore, and I've been having this new thing where it's like, I just been looking at my skin a lot lately, and I hate this. I hate this, like, obsessive OCD that I have, where now that I know my blood work is good, now it's on to the next thing, and I've been, like, looking at my body, at my skin, and it's like, there's, like, I've been bitten by mosquitoes a lot since I've been out here in Mexico. There's a lot of mosquitoes, and sometimes the mosquito bites leave like little marks or scars, and my brain just automatically, every time it sees that, it's just like, skin cancer, man. You got skin cancer, melanoma, and I've had, like, some like moles on my skin since I was a kid, and, like, my brain, every time it sees it, it's like, man, you got melanoma, you got skin cancer, bro, you're dying. It just, like, automatically starts jumping there, and I really do hate that. I really do hate that my brain has been hijacked by this fear. There's this good scene in a movie called Apocalypto, where it's like the main tribe leader, he's, like, hunting with his son, and then he starts talking to his son about fear. He's like, son, fear is like a virus. Fear is like an infection. If you let it inside, he's going to infect you and take over. And it's so true. It's so true. I've been going through that a lot, where everything scares me. Every little thing I just get worried about so much, and I hate it. I really wish I could be more carefree. There's times where I really do, like, just go into these, like, it'll be, like, late at night, and my brain will just start overthinking, like, I have cancer, I have this, I have that. And then I feel my body temperature rise, my body temperature will literally rise when I start going in and out of these thoughts of cancer and disease and all this shit. And it's just, like, it's just horrible, man, because it's not good for me. It's not good. And that's a reason that I have this channel, because sometimes I just like to be able to vent and talk and get my points across. But it's like when your life has been so hellacious and so difficult, and you have nothing but defeats and humiliations and failures, your brain just becomes pessimistic. Your brain automatically goes to the worst possible outcome. And it's bad. It's really bad. It just like further cements your negative mentality, and I didn't used to be like that. I used to not care about death. I used to not fear death, but honestly, ever since my dad passed away, it just like made me see how real death could be. And it just like, it made me see like how much of a hole of a vacuum it could leave when you pass. And I have pets, and I just worry about them. Like, what if I do have a disease? And thankfully I don't. I know it's just my head. I know it's just my brain just screwing with me. And I go into these deep thoughts about what's going to be of my pets, what's going to be of all of the stuff that I got, what's going to be of all that. And it's just like it's horrible, because it's like it doesn't make any sense, bro. Like, you're fine, I'm fine. Yet my pessimistic negative brain, it just automatically just jumps to these conclusions. And like, that's a part of why I hate social media, because it's like every time I go on social media, I see somebody dying. I see somebody like, somebody's story about how they got cancer, or they got this, or how they're dealing with this disease. And it's just like, I really wish I could just drop the internet, but like, it's so addictive. It's so addictive. Like, you could try to go the whole flip phone route, but sooner or later your brain is just gonna like seek that dopamine. And it's just horrible, man. It's horrible. I hate being this pessimistic. I hate being this negative, but it's just a result of my life. I don't actively choose to be this way. It's just a result of my life. And that's why sometimes I've had to fall upon substances like 420, like alcohol, because they help me. They help me get through. And I can't even enjoy those anymore. Like, every time I smoke a little bit, my brain just jumps to lung cancer. Every time I drink a sip of beer, my brain runs to cirrhosis of the liver. And it's just like, sometimes we're just plagued by information. We're plagued by knowledge. Like, knowledge, like, sometimes I wish I was just like like a Indian, a Native American or something around a teepee, just living life, instead of just knowing all this dumb knowledge that just becomes negative. I hate it. It's so hard to be an optimist. It's so hard to be optimistic when your life's been hell. And like, I know a part of it is just, I don't have anybody. I don't have a woman in my life. I don't. Yeah, I have a couple of guys that I talk to and stuff, a couple of homies, but at the end of the day, it's, you could only go so deep with the homies, and they're probably battling their own demons. And it's just, sometimes I really do wish I had like a partner, a woman, just to help me get my mind off of things. Not even so much as like, oh, she's gonna calm me down. No, honestly, sometimes I wish I had a woman just to distract me. Just to distract me from my brain, just to distract me from my overthinking brain. You know what they say, idle time is the devil's playground. That's true. It's like, whenever I have just, when you just don't have anything to do with your life, besides maybe just a simple, boring job, and that's it. Your brain just starts making these connections, and your brain just starts going and getting hijacked by negative thoughts and fear. And that's just what I've been battling with a lot. It's been something I've been battling with a lot. And I tried talking to my family about it, but they just don't. I don't think my family really understands me. I don't think my family understands me. What is worse is, my family, they think I'm a lunatic. And maybe they're right, but when you're categorized as a lunatic, when you're put into that box of like, oh, this guy's had mental health issues in the past, he's crazy, everything that you say just gets pretty much just chopped up and put into that box. So like, whenever I try talking to my family about my thoughts, about how I overthink a lot, and sometimes I just feel negative, and I feel like I'm dying, and I feel like I have all these things, instead of like trying to help me calm down, they'll just kind of just like dismiss me, and they'll tell me to calm down and just, breathe in and out. It's like, what's that gonna do? It's just, that's why I say, when you're a guy who's pessimistic and unattractive and unsuccessful, you really, sometimes it sucks. You're really best off just eating those thoughts and keeping them to yourself, not telling anybody. Because as soon as you open up, you're just gonna get dismissed as lunatic, as a crazy guy, as, oh, he's crazy, and that just even makes you even more pessimistic. And that's why, I don't know, I've just been dealing with a lot of stuff, man. And sometimes that's why I wish I did have a woman by my side, just so she could help me distract myself from myself. Because I'm like, self-destructive. My brain is self-destructive, and it's always seeking, it's always scared, it's always worried, it's always full of doubt and full of negative ideas about what's going on with me, when in reality I'm probably very normal. I'm probably very healthy. I just went to the doctor like 3 weeks ago. He said I'm fine. He said, I just got blood work done like a week ago. They said I'm fine. And I feel fine. It's just my brain. I've just let fear enter my heart, and it's been chewing me up. It's been chewing me up, and there's times I really wish that I could be more positive, but it's real hard. It's a battle, man. When your life has been so hellacious, when you've dealt with assholes in the past, bullies, people picking on you, people making fun of your insecurities, and not having any romantic success. Like I said, some men, they have a woman in their corner, and she's enough. She's his rock, and she helps keep him on the right path and on the right track. And sometimes I do wish I had that. I have a good envy for those men. Like I wish I had what you guys had. I know a couple of couples that they've been together since high school, and since middle school, and it's like, I envy those guys. A good envy. I don't hate them. I don't wish I could take it from them. I have a good envy, like a respectable envy. Like, man, I wish I had that as well. I really do wish, because I've been alone for so long. I've been alone my whole life, that the only thing I have to bounce ideas off of are my pessimistic, negative brain. That's why sometimes, a lot of people, when they talk to me, they say you're negative, you're extreme. I've gotten labeled extreme a lot, and very graphic. And I know sometimes I am graphic, and when I describe things, and they're very graphic, but that's just the way my brain is. I have a very descriptive brain, and unfortunately it's backfiring on me, because I just think about all these, like, there's times I even have these like these animations in my head of like cells with cancer, cancer cells multiplying. It's weird. It's like, I hate it. I wish I could just get this brain to shut off. I really do. And people will say, man, you got to get on SSRI. Screw that. I've tried Zoloft. I tried that once for like a day. It was hell. It was hell. I felt like a zombie. It literally, I was just sitting on my bed, crisscross applesauce, just zoned out when I did Zoloft. And I promised myself to never do that again. And I know a large part of it just is just deriving from, I'm just depressed. I've been going through a lot of things. I've had a lot of losses in my life, and sometimes it's hard to stay positive when you've had that many losses. But I don't wish this upon anybody. If you have a pretty life, if you're a guy that has a normal life, get off of this content. Don't watch this shit. If you're a guy that has potential, and maybe you have a bit of looks to you, you've had a couple girlfriends in the past and they've loved you, get off of this content. Because this content is like exclusive for men like me, whose lives have just been hell, and we have no wins, we have no victories, we have nothing to look back on. That's why I genuinely wish I could have at least one girlfriend. I wish I could have, because there's times I'm scared of dying. Not so much because I fear what's on the other side, but because I haven't lived. That's more than anything why I get so scared about the health stuff. That's why I went and panicked and did blood work and all that stuff, because I was like, I can't be dying. I haven't lived. I haven't ever held a woman's hand. I haven't ever felt fulfilled in my life. I haven't ever done things that I genuinely want to do. There's so many things that I want to do in my life that I haven't done, that I haven't been able to accomplish. And just the idea, the mere thought of me passing away without doing that, it just really makes me even more pessimistic and more negative. And I know I should use that as fuel to improve and to get better and to put my best foot forward every day and stuff. But it's just, I don't know, it's real hard, man. It's like trying to make a fire out of nothing. It's like trying to eat air. It's really hard. And you know what they say, you can't make something out of nothing. And that's true. I don't have any beautiful memories to look back on. I don't. I have, yeah, like I said, I have my pets and stuff, but they could only provide me with so much cope. And they're just doing their little dog thing, and at the end of the day, I'm a human. I'm a human that's supposed to explore and live a human life. And that's, it's just hard. It's hard to be positive. It's hard to have a positive mindset, a happy-go-lucky mindset, when your life hasn't reflected that. I've gone through a lot of things in my life. I don't really care to get into them, but just know I've gone through a lot of things. I've seen a lot of brutalities, experienced a lot of brutalities. I've been struck by a lot of black pill missiles. And sometimes it's just so hard. It's so hard to make myself positive. It's so hard for me to release the fear out of my heart. And sometimes that fear is healthy and it helps me be precautious about certain things in my life, but sometimes that fear is just a double-edged sword, and it just really cuts deep and poisons me from the inside. I feel like I'm poisoned right now from negative thoughts and negativity, but it's not synthetic negativity. It's real negativity that I've gone through and experienced in my life. And I don't even know if this is making any sense, but it's so hard to be positive sometimes. When you've had a rough life, when you've known nothing but defeat and failure, you can't help but be a pessimist. When you've witnessed the death of your father, you can't help but fear death and fear disease and fear cancer and fear leukemia and, all this stuff. And, sometimes I just hate that I have access to that much info, because like I'll type in things on the internet and, you could have a simple common cold and, Google's going to tell you got stage 6 cancer, man. You're done. You got 2 days left to live. It's like, sometimes I just wish I lived in the past. I know the past wasn't any better, but sometimes just being ignorance is bliss. You know what they say, but peace out.